Good morning, everyone. If you are in India, good evening, everyone. If you are in the US or any other parts of the world, welcome to Emerging Futures. What's Next? The show that puts you face to face with world experts discussing technologies, business ideas, and innovation that are shaping the way our world will look tomorrow. Today, we are talking about whether technology can save women in India and can be safe for Indian women. And this comes as a result of a brutal gang rape that happened in 2012 in India on the street of the capital city in Delhi. And it was such a bad rape that it really stirred the entire country. The girl did not survive. She went by a pseudonym Nirbhaya, fearless, for her valor in fighting her assailants. Her real name was never released in the news in the media to protect her modesty and identity. Shortly after, a startup by two women, Elsa de Silva and Surya Bansal, decided to change the way women are being treated in public places and put end to sexual harassment. And they created SafeCity.in. And today we have with us Elsa. How are you, Elsa?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you, Ifa.
So this is really cool. We are hanging out with Elsa in India, and this is Elsa's first hangout. So Elsa, first of all, very happy to have you with us. And we are going to dive in to discussing whether technology can really change a culture. And so let's start before we dive into all that stuff. You have a very interesting history. You were a pilot. You were doing many, many things before you funded this nonprofit and this organization. So tell us a little bit about the history and then what caused you to build this organization and start really changing the culture and keep Indian women safe.
Thank you, Irfat. And first of all, I was never a pilot, but
Oh, you're not a pilot, I know.
I spent 20 years in aviation, and I started off actually as a cabin crew, and I was a safety instructor teaching pilots and crew safety procedures. But later I moved into the strategic side of the airline business, and my last position was heading a department where we planned the route network for one of India's largest airlines. And in 2012, I was looking for a change in career. It was also the time when this airline that I was working with started to, suffer financially. And I also happened to meet my two co-founders. So we are three of us. We met at a management program by the Swedish Institute that focused on corporate social responsibility. And along with all these changes in my life, we decided that we wanted to work together on women empowerment. And what exactly were we wanting to do was actually mentor women. However, it was shortly after this program that the Nirbhaya rape happened, and we were really shocked, and we were motivated to focus on the safety and security of women rather than mentoring. We felt mentoring could always come later, but safety and security was like the basic need that needed to be addressed. And we had heard about a similar initiative in Egypt called Harassment, and we said, what a cool idea. If one can use data and technology to highlight this issue and also help women to break their silence, come forward, share stories, and we could make sense of this data and find these locations which are comfort zones of the perpetrators, could we then showcase these and try to change them at the neighborhood level? So that's what we started to do. And now we are working in 4 cities. We are working in Delhi, Bombay, Pune, and Goa.
And you've had a lot of great response for that, right? You have about 4,000 entries in the app.
Yes, we have more than 4,000 personal accounts of sexual harassment from over 50 cities in India. We're also helping another organization in Nepal to map harassment because they particularly have a problem of transportation that is not safe for women. And we are trying to help them collate this data so that they can showcase the issue in a better way to the local authorities and push for their pink bus.
So let's talk about how this really helps to change the mentality and what's happening on the ground in India. So first of all, I'm excited that we're even hanging out from India. That's really, really cool. And so this technology is really bringing together, allowing us to connect, across the world, globally, with no borders, and talk to each other. What you're doing right now, you are showing exactly what's happening in India. And I know that the women situation, harassment, rape, and all that stuff is not limited just to India, right? So let's first tell me, how does that change just the visual, just knowing what's happening in India and how many rapes and how many assaults are happening on a daily basis? How does that change the culture?
So first of all, first we have to realize that when a woman gets harassed or when a girl gets harassed, most often, no matter where she is in the world, most often she doesn't actually speak up about it, let alone go and make an official complaint either to the police or any other authority. And what happens in the bargain is that she internalizes the problem and starts limiting her choices in life. Probably, does not stay out late, probably dresses over conservatively, or she may not choose to go to any place alone. Now, what we are trying to do is get these experiences out in the open to first tell someone that it's not only happening to you, it's happening all across the country and probably around the world. B, you should not feel embarrassed because it is the other person who's trying to use their power against you, and he needs to be called out. He needs to be probably taken to task. And lastly is, once you read other people's stories, you yourself start to think that can I handle it better? Can I be more confident? Can I also talk about it, whether to my family or my friends or even go to the police? So that is what we are trying to do. And visually representing this data in the form of hotspots kind of pinpoints location-based problems. So for example, if you were to come to India and you could zoom into our map and talk about, see what other people are saying about a particular locality in Delhi, for example, and you were to go there, you could then make informed choices. Do I go by public transportation? Do I take a cab? Do I change the place of my meeting? Or should I still be confident enough to go there? But you would have the first baseline data to make you aware and stay alert. And I think that's powerful. And secondly is, if you were to live in that area which is a hotspot, can you then change it along with your neighbors? Sometimes all it needs is fixing of street lights. It doesn't always necessarily require police intervention.
That's very
So
interesting.
yeah, so in that sense, I think we want more and more people as individuals or as communities to use our site. Now, you spoke about official statistics. Official statistics actually don't represent the true nature of the problem simply because women don't feel comfortable going to the police and making an official complaint, either because of social cultural issues or the perception that the police are not going to really help them. So quoting any official statistics is actually meaningless over here because they don't really represent the true nature of what is going on.
So it's interesting because what I hear you say is, like, first of all, we're empowering women by letting them know that there's a community that is going through the same process with them. And it's not just them, an isolated incident that they should feel ashamed of. So we're putting it out in the open, shining a light on it, and saying, this is not your fault. You shouldn't be embarrassed about it. Let's speak up. And
Yes, absolutely.
the other very interesting thing, and I'm going to share my screen again, that when I'm looking at the reports of what women are sharing, it's actually very, very scaring. We see harassment, loud sexual remarks, I don't know what a shipment incident is. Grouping by 4 or 5 boys for money. That's crazy. A man on a bike grouped from behind and then sped away. This is another one that's like really crazy. My 60-year-old mother was attacked. So, you're reading this and and kidnapping, helpless situation, um, you know, bikers are nuanced here, hydrated. So you're looking at all that and you're going like, wow, this is a cultural issue. The men don't really care whether you're a woman, an old woman, a child. It's just like the level of harassment is so high, and the assumption that women are there for the men's pleasure seem to be so embedded in the male society in India. It's like, how does a woman stand up and say, okay, this was good up until today, I'm not taking this anymore?
So I want to qualify over here that I don't think it's all men that are, are an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think most men are very supportive and would not indulge in behavior like this. But it is that minority uh, that indulges in unacceptable and inappropriate behavior, and they need to be called out. And the reason why we want to put this out in public is to increase bystander intervention as well, because there are plenty of good men, plenty of people around, but nobody tends to intervene for whatever reason. They could probably fear that they could get harassed themselves, or they could get into an argument or a fight, or it could become a police case which nobody really wants to get involved in. However, when you have things like this, children being assaulted, old people being assaulted, or some men harassing women in public, can we not collectively put an end to it? I mean, sometimes all it requires is better street lighting. It may require increased policing, but definitely, if somebody around says, "Listen, that behavior is offensive and it is making this woman uncomfortable," I think you're putting the other person on the spot, the perpetrator on the spot, and he may not want to get called out again. So I think it's very important that all the good men who are bystanders start intervening.
So you have a big task on your hand, Elsa. You're going to change culture, and in third of the world's population, and you are telling women, stand up and speak up. And I think there's a big risk in there as well, right? There's a big risk in standing up and speaking up, especially in a society that is not used to that.
Absolutely, but of late I have seen that more and more women feel confident enough to actually take control of the situation and confront their perpetrator. And I think this is only because there is more conversation. There's more conversation in the media, there's more conversation amongst ourselves, there's more conversation in social media. Yes, it's unfortunate that some of us have gone through much more serious um, situations, like the girl in Delhi who was raped and who died of her injuries. And but we can't let those incidents go by without actually having that change, bring about that change in society. So I think we should never forget what she had to go through, so that we probably have a better life. So I think these conversations, and thank you for having me on, because it's also conversations like these that kind of educate, empower, inform, and connect with other women around the world to say that you are not alone. It happens, but don't internalize it. In fact, find a way, whichever way it is that you are comfortable with, to handle the situations, make yourself strong, seek help, and if possible, confront the perpetrator. You may not do it directly, but the very fact that you first acknowledge that it is not my fault and I'm going to seek help, redressal for this, is actually taking a stand and confronting the situation ahead of you.
So one of my dreams is to go to India and do it on a motorcycle. I don't know where I got that dream. And I know nothing about India except, stories of people who went there. A lot of Israelis go to Goa and, find their spirit and stuff. Um, but aside of that, I don't know anything about India. So can you share a little bit what it's like to live in India, what it's like to be born into the society, how technologically advanced it is? Um, just a little bit about the day to day, what's going on there.
So India is actually a very fascinating and beautiful country. It is a subcontinent. So, it's not a small, tiny country. It's like huge. It's like many countries in one. And it's fascinating because there are many Indias, I would say. So, right from, you know, Kashmir, where you have snow-capped mountains, to the beaches of Goa and Kerala, and we have a very long coastline both on the east and west, and you have the deserts in Rajasthan. It makes for a very beautiful holiday and a journey. And if you were to do it on a motorcycle, I think you would be very, very happy in some ways. Um, from the aspect of keeping safe, like when you go to any new place or any country, it's important that you respect the traditions. So, like for example, if you were to enter a temple, you dress appropriately. You would not let yourself be in a situation where you'd be in a very dark spot alone late in the night. I mean, these are precautions that one would take in any city that you're not familiar with or any country that you're not familiar with.
That's
And
true.
if you need more information, you can always check Safe City, because we are trying to capture what people are saying, and there are things that people are saying. If you feel you are in a better situation to control it, please go ahead. Otherwise, people are in general very friendly. You do have access to technology and the internet and mobile services all throughout the country. So if you have a fully charged mobile phone, I think that's another way to keep safe and stay connected with your loved ones. And in general, I think you should still, make that motorcycle ride across India.
I'll come visit you, Elsa. It'll be awesome.
Yeah.
So, but tell me a little bit about the family structure and the culture itself. So, I'm assuming that the family is very, very close. The way that they live is very much of in a family pack. Does it feel more like a tribal living? I know there's huge cities, that's probably just the same as in America, but what is the culture like in India?
So we do have both extremes. So you have tribals that actually live in forested areas and are pretty cut off from the rest of society. And some of them are matriarchal as well, so they are not all patriarchal family structures. But in general, in India, family is very important. Family people are very close to their families, and it's very patriarchal, except for a few areas. Which means that the head of the home, in general, the father or the elder brother, has a great say, or in many cases, your husband has a very big say in what you do, and you know. Makes most of the choices in your life. However, that is changing, and I think it is in a transition phase where a lot of joint families, so extended, people used to live in one big house with their uncles and aunts and grandparents and all. Now it's becoming more nuclear. Women are now educated and wanting to step out to get employment, and everything's changing at the moment. So I think the men have to kind of adjust to this new woman who is independent both emotionally and financially, and probably that's where the conflict is. And
Yeah.
it's only if you have conversations like these, even within the home or amongst friends, then you can resolve differences. But if we don't talk about it, and I find that people actually don't talk about it, because we do a lot of workshops with colleges, schools, youth, even corporates and communities, and they find it very difficult. Women in general find it very difficult to actually stand up for themselves, even within the home setting. So I think it's very important that we have these conversations, keep an open mind, hear people out patiently, and try to adjust and compromise and make the best decision for ourselves.
So is how many people in? So I'm assuming a lot of people in India have smartphone, more than they have computers or TV or other stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, so a lot of our population have mobile phones, not necessarily smartphones. They're more on Android. So I think of all the mobile
Way to go,
users,
India!
yeah, it's 80% that are Android and only 20% or so are smartphones.
So is and on their Android devices, is it more Facebook or is it more internet or are there specific apps that they're using?
So a lot of people are on Facebook. I think that's the most popular social media, and WhatsApp. WhatsApp is
Yeah.
even more popular than Facebook. So everyone is on WhatsApp. They have their work groups, their social groups, and their personal groups on WhatsApp.
Yeah, Israel is exactly the same. Everybody's on Facebook and WhatsApp. I have a WhatsApp group for my family, and this is how we communicate. And so, and the reason why I'm asking if they're all on Facebook and WhatsApp, or what they're using, is because that will show what information comes their way, right? If you are surrounded by, if all you read is your Facebook friends and their mentality is that women should be housewives and the property of their husband, then that's all you get from the internet, and you don't get the vast, the expansion of what's actually happening in the world. So is that how women in India and the culture itself kind of like cycles information? Where do they get how do they get exposed to other ways of living that you don't have to be a stay-at-home woman or mom or anything?
So I think yes, social media has a big role to play, and probably has been a big role in a lot of women stepping up and speaking out. We ourselves use Facebook quite a bit to talk about current issues, to talk about what's happening in the world, and probably share how other women have handled a particular situation. And I think that in itself, is great education and awareness, because many women did not, we realized when we started this mapping exercise that a lot of women didn't even know what sexual harassment was. And they definitely didn't know what the law was. So through Facebook, through our social media, and through our workshops, we try to educate and empower on these two aspects. What is sexual harassment? What are the laws and what are your rights? And we also touch upon gender and sexuality, and how it affects and impacts our life, because we have to battle these cultural and social stereotypes and attitudes and norms. So we are constantly trying to challenge them and get people to keep an open mind whilst challenging these biases that we have.
That is that's a very that's a very hard mission. I when Google flew me to Israel to talk about Google Plus about 3 years ago, and then put me in a room with the top internet, with the top marketers in Israel, and they did not get Google Plus. The question was like, okay, do I spend my time educating them or do I wait for them to catch up? And it sounds like you're in the same space, but just in a very in a much more riskier environment, right? It's like, do I wait for the country to catch up with the rest of the world, or how do I start changing it from within? So Elsa, I totally applaud you for everything that you're doing. This is major. Um, I want to also recognize a few people in that are watching us. Jason Hodge is watching us. Candy is here. Jeffrey is here, and Steven. And guys, I apologize for not opening the Hangout just yet. You'll be able to join us later, but I'm just worried that Elsa's connection is going to drop off. So we're going to get as much as we can before we open it up. So Jason is asking, with the inception of the app of Safe City and the potential and its potential negative and or positive impact on travel and tourism, did you find more support or opposition from your government when you launched it?
So right now we are on a website. Our mobile app is under development and we don't have any governmental support yet. So we are doing things on our own. We've just registered our organization as a not-for-profit as of last year. And yeah, we are just reaching out to NGOs, other NGOs who work in the community, working with local police and working with corporates. I think the response has been fantastic. I don't think anyone has spoken about drop-in tourism. Yes, there's one person who's working on actually an app to help women travelers who come from abroad. It's more like a concierge service, and she needed our data to, kind of populate her app as well. But other than that, I think the overlying need is actually addressing the safety. So I think that's where people have been very supportive and have come out in large numbers to work with us, give us their time and effort and skill. And no one has yet spoken about the drop-in tourism. So yeah.
Well, that would be my first look. I'm looking at your map, and I'll share that again, actually. Looking at your map, and I'm like, okay, India is completely not the place that you want to travel to, because every little city, there's just so many, huge numbers. And as a government, I would look at this and be like, okay, how much does it cost me as a government in tourism? Because obviously, nobody's going to come to this area. There's so many harassment here, right? So as the local government in this area, I would say, well, if I'm not fixing this situation, if I'm not addressing it, I will lose the tourism that can, just potentially come from here. It sounds like the government has not yet been aware of the impact that this can do economically on the country. And I think if men start feeling that it touches their pocketbook and money, then this will be probably a much wider issue that they address.
So I'd like to make one point over here. Our idea of the map is not to make people scared about coming to India, but highlight what other people are saying and give and learn from it. So, for example, today everyone before they watch a movie or invest that time in watching the movie, they read reviews, and you do that when you go to a restaurant to have a meal, you go to a hotel to stay. So why don't we actively also look out for our own safety? But where do you get that information? You don't get it easily. I'll give you an example. We were in San Francisco last year in around noon, right in the heart of the city, and my co-founder and I had to attend a meeting. Now, we split. I went to Presidio, which is a beautiful part of the city, and she ended up taking a couple of left and right turns and ended up in a neighborhood where she felt totally uncomfortable and had to evacuate before she was attacked. Now, no one told us you can't be walking around in that part of town. It was only later that, when we were telling everyone about this incident, that they said, oh, nobody walks around in that part of town. Where would somebody who's not familiar get that kind of information?
Yeah.
And hopefully we're creating that, that database which allows you to access snippets like this, which would keep you safe. And our mobile app should be out around April or May, which will actually push this out in a more readable and usable fashion, so that hopefully you still want to explore India, but you don't feel that you are going to be unsafe there.
That's good, because I'm definitely going to be unsafe on a motorcycle. Kristin, you want to jump in?
Oh, thank you so much for what you're doing. This is like amazing. It's like crowdsourcing safety. That's what I think of, and that's just an absolutely amazing concept to think about, that we can take our own safety into our hands. It's giving us the powers. Thank you for empowering individuals. I also want to recognize that you're here speaking to us in this way, and that is something that is in and of itself like miraculous, because we're not having to read a story from a journalist. We have you telling us, and that is so impactful. when I went to school to be an advocate, because I had domestic violence where I was in and out of shelters for 2.5 years, and then I graduated to a homeless shelter. Graduated there. So when I was on my feet, I decided I'm going to be an advocate, and that's why I'm here in social media, be a voice for the voiceless. But I started learning about social media and everything. I didn't know anything. I didn't know that it existed. I didn't even know that YouTube was a thing when I got out of my situation. When I started going to school and someone said you should go online, and I was like, okay, well, so I had to learn computers, I had to learn everything, in that moment basically. So then I learned, wow, there's all these avenues to reach out to people, and I had so many years just in the home with no way to reach out. So I was like, I'm gonna talk to everybody, and I made it my mission. I shouldn't say getting onto Facebook. I had a lot of people friend me that I didn't know, and a lot of them did happen to be from India. And so I was like, you know what? And I had just learned about honor killings, and in school, and I was just like, I'm just gonna ask them. I'm gonna start talking to them and just see, like, what are they like? Like, what are men like over there? Because I was frightened by all the things that I was watching in school. And so having you here and talking to us like this, that strips down and breaks down fallacies. So this is amazing. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, first of all, thanks, Kristin, for sharing your story, because it is not easy. And we get that all the time in workshops. There's always some workshop where we end up all crying, because I think violence, and especially sexual violence, affects us in some way, at least most of us. I have not come across, maybe, yeah, there's just a handful of women who've said in our workshops that they have not been, at the receiving end of this kind of sexual harassment and assault at least once in their lifetime. So it happens across the board, but it's very, very difficult to talk about it, and a lot of women just keep it within themselves. And what you did, I think, is amazing, that you took it upon yourself to get out of the situation and then educate yourself and then reach out to others through social media. I think that's really, really amazing. And when people read your story or hear, and that's why we are having this conversation, it's easier for them to connect. And even then, whilst they may not still speak up, they now know that they're not alone. And I think that is so powerful. And it's only through technology that we can reach many, many more women, because if you just write your story or just keep it within, it's never going to reach out to the millions who need it. So I think what IFAT is doing through Hangouts, what we are trying to do through crowdsourcing, what you are trying to do through social media, I think is all going to, amalgamate into one large global movement that, to tell women that you're not alone, that you should speak up for yourself, find the help that you need, and there's help available. So it's just that we need to first stop internalizing the problem and then reach out and find out, who can help us.
Yes, I love what you're saying there. Don't internalize it. And it wasn't until I was able to bring it into an academic study that I could really divorce myself from it, because then it was no longer my emotions attached to, oh yeah, but, and all of this guilt attached to it, because I could see logically. And that's what I'm trying to share, or more like what you're sharing, like just looking at what it is. It is what it is. And I also, I kind of wonder, I've been toying with this like over the last couple of weeks, about kind of changing my emphasis a little bit and having it, like, emphasizing more the family violence, because I think that there's a tendency for women to feel like, oh yeah, but I can take it because I'm strong. That's what I did. I can take it. As long as the kids aren't being touched, I can do it. I'm a woman. And I think when we put it in that family sense, then we get that the true sense of like what is really going on. This is not just affecting a man or a woman. This is affecting the family, and it's a society problem. It's not, you can't just isolate it. It's not isolated.
Absolutely. And you know, we started off with mapping sexual harassment in public spaces. We didn't really want to touch upon domestic violence because we felt it was it was opening up Pandora's box. It really is, you know. And if a woman cannot confront a perpetrator who is a stranger, how much more difficult it is to confront someone who probably is a loved one, you know. But of late, we are now starting to get reports where people are talking about known perpetrator violence, and it is very, very rampant. It is a big problem. Yes, nobody's talking about it, and I feel that's where society also has to intervene, the bystanders. Remember earlier we spoke about the bystanders. So in a public setting, bystanders don't intervene. And definitely in a domestic violence scenario, people around, even your extended family sometimes doesn't intervene. And so a woman, yes, she can take a lot, but how much? And with no support from others around her. So another NGO Breakthrough had a very interesting campaign. They said if you hear of domestic violence, press the bell, ring the bell. And you know, I thought that simple gesture, which a non-threatening gesture of ringing a doorbell can interrupt the violence in that home and probably save a life. You never know. So I think a lot of people are doing a lot of interesting work. We need to support each other. We need to collaborate. We need to talk about it. There's a lot of work that has to be done, but has to be done collectively. And I think in the process, I hope that women will feel empowered enough to, you know, stand up for themselves and find the right solution for them.
Yep. When, you know, we're talking today not just about what goes on, you know, with women abuse and violence. We're also talking about how technology affects that and how we can change that through technology. And we're talking about social media, the fact that everyone in India is connected through a smartphone to their friends and family with Facebook and WhatsApp. And the Uber just entered India, and there was a case where an Uber driver raped a passenger, and it became, you know, a big deal. Should Uber even be there? Should we allow these things? And now Uber came out with a panic button in the app that allows a passenger to press the panic button, and that will alert the police as well as alert 5 of their closest friends. So they choose whoever they want to have as a safety net, and a message will go out with the location of where the passenger and the Uber is. So my first thought was like, great. It will take a while for the police to arrive, and in that time between the pressing the panic button and the police arriving, stuff can happen. But the second thought was, well, maybe if this is if Uber drivers are aware that this is part of the app, then that will be the deterrent, and they're not going to do anything about that, knowing that the technology is right there and a woman can just press the panic button and we know exactly who was the driver, what happened. So if that's the case, now we're getting into laws and enforcement. And how willing is the government in India to change laws to protect women in India? Regardless, you know, we can have all the technology in the world. If an Uber driver gets arrested and released the next day and nothing happens to them, then we haven't changed anything, right?
Yeah. So we have laws. So in India, strong laws. In fact, after the Nirbhaya incident, the government has actually amended a few laws. So we have laws that you know, protect a woman when it happens in the street. You also have Sexual Harassment at the Workplace Act. You have you know, Prevention of Sexual Offences Against Children Act. You have the Domestic Violence Act. So laws are there, and they are very strong laws. They are very much in favor of women. But if one doesn't make an official complaint, how then do you enforce the law? And secondly is, why are people not making official complaints? That needs to be addressed. So I think, you know, you have to address it socially, culturally. You have to educate both men and women to say that this behavior is not appropriate, and there are consequences to this behavior which are really very strict. And yes, I don't know whether those panic buttons are going to be effective, but yeah, I think knowing that there's a panic button and knowing that even men should be aware that there are laws against this, because if they know that there's a law and there's a consequence to the law, probably they may not indulge in it. But then, we have to look at it holistically and first find who are these people who are, violating a woman's right, or who's actually, abusing her. So, yeah, I mean, you can use technology, you can make people aware, you can bring the issue to light, but ultimately, if somebody is going to go the legal way, how do we support that person? Sensitize the police, sensitize the judicial system so that you have fast track courts, you have, uh, you have a trial without judgment, basically. I mean, where the woman doesn't feel judged, because ultimately she's coming forward to make these claims that she was harassed and abused, but then there's always, the highlight and the spotlight is on her to say, what was she doing there? Why was she wearing what she was wearing? She is,
Yeah.
of this kind of character, labeling her, etc. So that needs to stop and give her a fair chance to seek justice.
So Elsa, what gives you the power? I mean, what gives you the voice? I mean, do you live in a very supportive family, very supportive, safe community that you can come out and speak on behalf of women and call for this kind of awakening?
Yes, I mean, my family has been extremely supportive. The men in our house, have been really supportive. And without that, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing, because when I first started, even I was, nervous about talking about all these things in public. But, the more I talk about it, the more women open up and share their experiences. And I feel I've been very lucky. I've had a wonderful career so far. I've traveled extensively throughout the world. Fortunately, I have not faced, extreme harassment where, my body may have been violated. Yes, I've been offended. Yes, I've been at the receiving end of various forms of sexual harassment. But I mean, having a supportive family and a support system around you makes you stronger to deal with it. And I think, now I'm in a position where I can help many more women, and it just makes me stronger, both physically, mentally, emotionally, to go forward and do this work.
That's wonderful, because one of the amazing things that's happening is knowing that what's socially acceptable, what's culturally, acceptable is not right. And if you are a girl growing up in this type of society where your uncles and aunts and husbands and dads and stuff treat you as property, how do you know that this is not right? And you actually are, you're obligated to say, no, this is not okay, and I'm not gonna continue this family tradition of me having to listen to my husband. So how does that shift happen? Like, how do you go up from like, this is how the world is, to like, the world is wrong?
So I'm not saying the world is wrong. I'm just saying that some people are doing things that are incorrect and they need to be called out. And I actually believe that most of the world is good. And you have to trust and believe in that fact. And if together there are more people who support women who are at the receiving end of sexual harassment and abuse. I think the minority that indulges in this inappropriate behavior will find themselves excluded from society, and will find that they no longer can indulge in this kind of behavior. So I think it's very important that all of us stand together on this topic, whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, because even men could be victims of abuse, especially young boys. So, and they themselves can't talk about it, with all the cultural and the social stereotypes of having to be strong and not having to cry and not having to admit that you could have been a victim. So they probably have it worse than women. So on this issue, I think there should be no question. Everybody should stand together and support each other and say abusive behavior is incorrect and we are not going to support it. And if you do that, you'll find that probably, the world is a much better place around you and for you.
I want to bring up some of the comments that we got before we started the hangout. And Ray was saying he's a veteran. And it says, it's just not right. Respect for a lady is what should be shown. I get so mad at bullies that think they can own the world. They don't own anything except my anger. Being a vet, I see things differently than most. I think one should be able to believe in whatever they want. Oh, so he's responding to one, but it's a matter of choice, not yours or mine. I don't think that. Okay, this is a response to one of the comments saying that he's very disappointed that as an American, some people feel that they should still be able to abuse women. This is a very interesting one from Sheila, responding to Ray and saying that the laws in Singapore, people are very disciplined. A lot of cameras around and even inside trains. So this is a very interesting concept, right? Using technology, cameras, in monitoring to ensure that there's no pocket pitting and there's no touching and no actions happening there because the penalties are very strict. Is that something that India might be using, putting cameras and then saying, hey, you got caught on camera touching a woman, so now we're going to take care of that?
So I'll first talk about Ray. I think he hit upon it clearly. These people are bullies, So I think anybody who's victimizing a woman is a bully.
Yeah.
Point blank. And they have to be called out. As for Singapore, I think Singapore is a very tiny country. And it's easier to manage that amount of population. I think that all of Singapore can fit into one of our smaller cities as well, So we are talking about huge populations. While CCTV cameras can be installed, I'm not sure if that's really the way to go because it's also intrusive and yeah, I mean, it has to work. People have to monitor it. So there's a whole lot of complications with CCTV cameras, but definitely yes. In like society buildings, residential apartments, in public transportation, they should try and have that if that is going to be a deterrent. Ultimately, society needs to believe that if they indulge in behavior that is against the law and inappropriate, they are going to get caught and they are going to get punished. And if that is done through CCTV cameras, why not?
What's really disheartening about that knowledge? What's really disheartening is that we can't be good people for the sake of goodness. Like we can't respect someone else for the sake of respecting someone else. We have to make sure that we put laws in place. Society doesn't accept that. It's not socially acceptable to be mean to women. It's not like a man grows up and says, this is my role in the world. I'm a human being. She's a human being. This child is a human being. And we all need to live together without one hurting the other. And we get to a point where it's like in Singapore where he was saying, oh, in the Philippines, we need to put cameras around and police around to make sure that humans behave as humans, which is really kind of like a really absurd. And it really makes me feel like, we might get to the age where technology goes like, well, you people, you don't know how to behave, so we're gonna behave for you. We're gonna think for you, act for you, and decide exactly what you're doing, because obviously you can't make any choices.
And what about domestic violence? You can't have the police or a CCTV camera within your home, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I don't think, I think if you really looked at the domestic violence figures, even in these countries, they are quite high. So, you may be able to take care of it in the in public spaces, but what about at home?
Kristen, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, yeah, because that was a big issue of mine. I didn't have a phone. I couldn't call. So I'm like a huge fan of what Taiwan did, where it's like mass free Wi-Fi. They're just like heroes to me for doing that. If we could do that and then make phones more accessible, make technology more accessible, I think that would be a really good thing to empower women to use their voice.
There's a comment from Candy saying that here in Japan, that's how it is. There are cameras all over the place, even for grade schools. Now they have their own GPS for tracking them after school. For other social media here in Japan, it still has to develop brighter sites to protect women. But they're thinking because of that, women will have their voices. So again, the question is, what do come first? Technology comes first to force us to act as human beings, or human beings be acting as human beings?
I think human beings should be more, you know, um, empathetic towards each other and treat each other well. But if technology can bring some relief to people, why not?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's very interesting. It's like the tools that we use to protect ourselves. It's kind of like, a fence is there to keep everybody out, but it also keeps you in, right? And so the question is, do you want that fence at all, right? So what is, if you're looking at a future, like in your ideal future, 5 years from now, what would you like to see?
Well, I hope there's no need for a safe city map. But I don't know whether that's possible in 5 years. But what I would like to do is actually get more and more people to share their stories and feel that they're not alone. And hopefully, it will be part of our curriculum in school so that children, right from when they're young, know what are gender stereotypes and be aware that this could lead to inappropriate behavior or mindsets that lead to violence or even injustice to fellow human beings. And hopefully, you would have the next generation that feels empowered to say, listen, this behavior is totally uncalled for and inappropriate, and I'm going to stand up for my own rights. So I would really like to see children being empowered through school curriculum.
What about women? Where do you see women right now? Right now, the roles in India, how many women are in professional roles in India? Or are they mostly housewives?
No, I think that number is increasing. I don't have the exact number, but I think yes. I mean, from the total population of India, 48 or 49% constitutes women. From those 48 or 49%, I think at least 20% actually have professional jobs. And then you have women who are housewives but may actually have small entrepreneurial businesses from home.
Hmm.
And the more technology touches our lives, actually women find a way to become economically empowered. So I think it's very important that they they actually become financially independent so that they can then think for themselves. It's like the first step, right? Having access to your own money gives you the power to stand up to the man of your house and say that, listen, I also want to be treated equally. So I think that's very important. Yeah.
I love that. So it starts with going out, having your own money, finding your own voice, and then being able to make your own decision. Is that right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And then, so I hear what your call for everybody who's watching this hangout is if you've sadly been affected by sexual harassment, any type of abuse, rape, God forbid, or anything like that, your call is this is a worldwide issue. Please come out and share your stories. Yes?
Yes, and there are several NGOs working in different countries. So find the one in your country, find the helpline. I'm sure most of the countries have laws. So, you know, the NGO will probably help you find a lawyer and represent you as well. And, you can always reach out to online groups across the world and find how other women have dealt with it and what is the best way to go about it. Because no one solution can be the right one. So find the best one for yourself and know that in this struggle that you're not alone. There are many more around who've experienced it, are experiencing it, and hopefully we'll make the world a better place so that fewer experience it in the future.
Amen to that. Kristen, you want to finish something for the US?
Yeah, I think that if we were to bring more possibility for people to see how we can interact as men and women without any kind of sexual tension or any kind of thing like that, just collaborating on projects as people, I think that that's where I'm hoping that the future will take us. Watching how we do things on Google Plus, that's a perfect testament to how it can be done. So I want to see more of that.
Yeah, and I love the conversations that we're having. I see a lot of really strong women and finding their voice in community, and I agree with you, Elsa. I mean, it's not easy to come out and speak, but it's really, really good when you find that there's a community of people who've been through the same thing as you, can support you through that, give you the power and the courage to speak up and stand up for yourself. And then I think in numbers, we're just going to change that. I mean, I think we're getting into the feminine age when we are more collaborating and we're not taking any more shit, guys. So this is our time to really stand up and change the world, and technology is here connecting us to India. How amazing is that?
Yeah.
So I really, really thank you for waking up really super early in the morning and joining us on a hangout and sharing your story and what you're doing in the world. I think it's amazing and fascinating that someone who did not go through something, thank goodness, as horrible as rape or abuse is actually dedicating her life to make a difference in other people's life. So, and I'm super happy that this is your first hangout. Way to go.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk about the work that we do. And if anyone is interested, they can blog for us, they can tweet for us. We have a curated account, Pin the Creep, on Twitter. Every week, there's a new person tweeting from their perspective as though they were Safe City. And I think that's also very participatory in nature, because we want to give voice to as many people as possible to share and talk about their experiences. So you can blog for us, you can tweet for us, and if you want to start mapping your own community, do get in touch. We'll tell you how it's done. It's quite easy to do it, and maybe you can bring about the change in your own local neighborhood.
That's actually one of the things that Christopher was saying. He said it will be very, very cool to get a comparison of different places in the world, creating databases of safe and unsafe location all over the world. Because, you know, some people don't know that when they come to New York, they should not be walking down Central Park. So let me just share one more. This is the website. It's called safecity.in, which stands for India. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And right here, guys, you can help and support with supporting the video that you saw, submitting reports, contacting Elsa, and really sharing your voice and helping spread the message that this is not okay. Women should not go through this, and for those women who are going through this, that there's a place for them to get support and be heard. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, Elsa, so much, and thank you, Kristen, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.